And then one day it came to me that I really have to decide what I want to do in life. So I decided that I wanted to become an actor. Before I left Hong Kong, Bruce and I talked, and he said, look, Jim, we're going to do another film. Next thing I knew, you know what happened?
In 1973, a man with a giant afro, lightning-fast kicks, and a cool that no camera could fully capture walked onto the most famous martial arts set in history and stopped the world. Not Bruce Lee, the other one. Jim Kelly stood shoulder to shoulder with the greatest fighter cinema ever produced and held his ground without flinching. Within 2 years, half the planet knew his name. Within 5, Hollywood acted like he never existed. No major scandal, no public breakdown, no clear explanation, just silence. And that silence lasted 30 years. His exit from Hollywood wasn't what it looked like. And the real reason he vanished from the spotlight is something Hollywood still doesn't fully talk about. The boy that Kentucky almost broke. Jim Kelly was born on May 5, 1946, in Millersburg, Kentucky. Jim Kelly grew up in a part of America that still had signs over diner doors telling black people where they could and could not sit. Racial segregation was not history yet. It was the present. The daily routine included suspicious stares, mocking words from classmates, and the constant reminder that the color of one's skin determined how far a person was allowed to go in life. Kelly fought back the only way available to a young black boy in that environment, through the body. At Bourbon County High School in Paris, Kentucky, he became a multi-sport force, competing in basketball, football, and track and field with a hunger that his classmates could not match. That athletic hunger earned him a scholarship to the University of Louisville, a remarkable achievement for a black student in the mid-1960s when such opportunities were genuinely rare. But America had not finished showing Kelly who it was. During a football practice at Louisville, a coach publicly humiliated a black player using a racial slur in front of the entire team. Kelly froze. Everything he had worked for, every hour of training, every sacrifice made to earn that scholarship collapsed under the weight of that single moment. The fairness he had believed in did not exist at that institution. That same night, Kelly packed his bag and left campus without a word to anyone. That decision changed everything, not as a defeat, but as a declaration. Kelly walked away from an institution that looked down on black men and walked straight toward a world that judged only one thing: skill. After leaving Louisville, Kelly found his way into a small dojo in Lexington, Kentucky. For the first time in his life, he was in a space where rank was earned through sweat, not assigned by skin color. The art was Shorin-ryu karate, a traditional Okinawan style built on speed, precision, and controlled aggression. Kelly had found his home. Under instructors including Parker Shelton, Nate Patton, and Gordon Doversola, Kelly trained at a level that would shock most people to imagine. 8 hours a day, broken bones, swollen legs, and not a single day off from showing up. Doversola is specifically credited by Kelly for making him a world-class competitor, and those who trained alongside Kelly during this period described a man who treated the dojo like a sacred space, not a gym. By 1971, Jim Kelly was ready for the biggest stage in American martial arts. The Long Beach International Karate Championships were the most prestigious tournament in the country at the time. Kelly stepped into that arena as the only black fighter among hundreds of competitors. He walked out as the world middleweight karate champion. That same year, he captured 4 major titles in total, becoming one of the most decorated competitive martial artists in America. The championship opened the door to California. Kelly relocated and opened his own dojo in the Crenshaw district of Los Angeles. The place attracted an unusual crowd for a martial arts school: actors, athletes, and celebrities drawn not just to the technical instruction, but to Kelly himself. There was something about the man that commanded attention: quiet, precise, unbothered. Exactly the kind of energy that stops people in their tracks. And it was inside that small Crenshaw dojo where the path to Hollywood accidentally began. How a training session became a movie career. Most people assume Jim Kelly arrived in Hollywood through auditions and casting calls. The actual story is completely different. Kelly was teaching karate to Calvin Lockhart, the star of a 1972 thriller called Melinda. The film needed a martial arts instructor as a character, and since Kelly was already on set working with the lead actor, the writer and producer simply looked at him and handed him the part. Kelly had never acted before. That first performance was raw, real, and impossible to ignore. The character was not a stretch. Kelly played a karate instructor because that is exactly what he was. The more important moment came when producer Fred Weintraub heard about the Crenshaw Dojo and went to see Kelly in person. Weintraub was working on a massive international project with Bruce Lee at Warner Brothers. One of the original cast members for a key supporting role had dropped out days before filming was scheduled to begin in Hong Kong. Weintraub walked into that dojo looking for someone real and walked out knowing he had found the person. The role was played by Williams in Enter the Dragon. The year was 1973. And the world was about to see something it had never seen before. A black man standing as a full equal in the world of martial arts cinema, not as comic relief, not as a sidekick, but as a warrior with complete, uncompromising dignity. Enter the Dragon premiered in 1973 and became one of the most successful martial arts films ever made. The film was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress in 2004 as being culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant. Most people know that fact in connection with Bruce Lee. Very few talk about what Jim Kelly contributed to that cultural significance. Williams, the character Kelly played, was not a sidekick and not a symbol of black struggle in the obvious way. Williams was free, confident, dangerous. He did not explain himself to anyone, did not seek approval, and did not bend to the world around him. For black audiences watching in 1973, this was genuinely new. Not the first black man on screen, not even the first black action figure, but the first black martial arts hero who operated as a complete human being rather than a type. Kelly earned that role through presence alone. In the audition, he walked in, stood still, delivered a short line, and gave a half smile. Director Robert Close made the decision on the spot. Bruce Lee reportedly nodded in agreement immediately. The two men developed a genuine friendship during filming. Lee told Kelly directly that he wanted the two of them to make another film together, a project where both would play warriors on opposite sides. That film was never made. Bruce Lee died on July 20, 1973, just weeks before Enter the Dragon premiered. The weight of that loss shaped everything that followed for Kelly. He had lost the one person in Hollywood who treated him as a complete equal, not as a symbol or a type, but as a man and a fellow martial artist. And what came next would make that loss even harder to carry. The label that followed him like a shadow. After Enter the Dragon, the press immediately reached for a label. They called Jim Kelly the Black Bruce Lee. On the surface, that sounds like a compliment. Underneath it, the label was a demolition tool. It defined Kelly's entire identity in relation to someone else. It said, "This man matters because of who he stood next to, not because of who he was." Kelly rejected that label clearly and firmly every time it was applied. He respected Bruce Lee deeply. He considered Lee the greatest martial artist who ever lived. But being the black version of someone else was not respect. It was erasure dressed up as praise. Kelly understood that distinction in a way the press either could not or chose not to. What the label actually did was place a ceiling on Kelly before the ceiling was visible. Every film pitched to him after Enter the Dragon was evaluated against that comparison. Is this the next Black Bruce Lee vehicle? Can he carry a film the way Lee would have? The question was never, what kind of film would let Jim Kelly be Jim Kelly? Black Belt Jones arrived in 1974, full of energy and strong box office results. 3 The Hard Way came the same year, pairing Kelly with Jim Brown and Fred Williamson in a film where 3 black men dismantled a white supremacist organization. Black audiences packed theaters. For a specific and significant moment, the genre felt revolutionary. But the foundation was already cracking underneath that success. And the crack had nothing to do with Jim Kelly. The blaxploitation era did not die slowly. It was killed deliberately. By the late 1970s, major studios, including Warner Brothers, MGM, and American International Pictures, had pulled funding from the entire genre. The public explanation was that the films glorified violence. The real explanation was more complicated. The conservative political shift in America was changing what studios believed audiences wanted. The civil rights momentum of the 1960s that had made space for black heroes on screen was being replaced by a cultural retreat. The era of Rocky, Rambo, and the Terminator was arriving. White male heroes dominated action cinema again. Black actors were returned to supporting roles, comic relief parts, or the character who dies in the first act of a horror film. The pioneers who had built an entirely new genre, Pam Grier, Fred Williamson, Jim Brown, and Jim Kelly, found their phones going quiet almost simultaneously. Kelly received scripts throughout this period. He read them carefully, and he rejected most of them. The characters on the page had no interior life. They existed to look tough, to deliver a few punches, and to make the white lead look heroic by comparison. Kelly called this out directly in interviews. He was not interested in being a symbol for someone else. If a role had no soul, he would not take it regardless of the paycheck. That refusal earned him the most dangerous label in Hollywood: difficult. Directors and producers passed along warnings through informal channels. The phrase strong-minded circulated through studio conversations as coded language for a black actor who would not simply obey. After 1978, Kelly was off the major studio casting lists. There was no announcement, no official ban, no document confirming it. The silence was complete and self-explanatory. The untold chapter nobody talks about. While his peers from the blaxploitation era were scrambling for minor roles, selling their names to low-budget productions, or struggling with the psychological damage of sudden irrelevance, Jim Kelly quietly walked onto a tennis court. He had been playing amateur tennis casually since the mid-1970s, beginning at Plummer Park in West Hollywood, while his film career was still alive. But once Hollywood went silent, tennis became the primary occupation. Kelly joined the USTA senior men's circuit as a professional and climbed to number 2 in the state of California in senior men's doubles. In the senior men's singles rankings, he broke into the California top 10. This fact deserves a moment. The man was a world-class karate champion who became a professional-level competitive tennis player in his second career. Those are not two hobbies. Those are two fully realized athletic identities at the highest level, separated by a decade. That kind of physical and mental discipline is almost without parallel in the history of American sports culture. Nobody on the tennis circuit knew who he was. He dressed simply. He wore a baseball cap. He coached children at a local club and taught lessons for income. He drove an old Porsche 911 and lived without excess or performance. Friends described a man who woke early, trained daily, ate carefully, drank nothing, and bragged about nothing. Later in life, Kelly settled permanently in San Diego and opened his own tennis club. No advertising, no press events, no social media presence. He simply disappeared into a private life so complete that for nearly 30 years, most of the world assumed he was either retired in obscurity or had already passed away. Here is the original insight this story carries. Jim Kelly did not lose. He opted out. There is a significant difference between a man who gets discarded and a man who sees what the system is offering and decides the offer is not worth accepting. Kelly understood what Hollywood wanted from him. It wanted a symbol, a product, a black body performing specific kinds of strength for a white-controlled entertainment machine. When that machine no longer needed the specific performance he represented, it moved on, and Kelly moved first. The tennis court was not a consolation prize. It was a declaration. On the court, the only currency was skill. No one cared about the color of skin. No one needed him to represent a movement or fill a demographic slot. The ball either went over the net or it did not. The private life and the final battle. Jim Kelly was married 3 times in his life. The first marriage to Marilyn Dishman in 1967 lasted barely over a year. The second, to film actress Rosalind Miles, ran from 1973 to 1977, largely through the peak of the Hollywood years. The third and final marriage, to Marcia Bentley in 1980, became the lasting foundation of his private world. Marcia Bentley stayed with Kelly for over 3 decades. The two had a daughter together, Sabrina Kelly, whose existence was almost completely unknown to the public for years. No family photos were circulated, no red carpet appearances together, no press interviews featuring the family unit. Kelly protected that portion of his life with the same discipline he brought to everything else. When asked in a 2010 interview why he never spoke about his family publicly, the answer was simple and absolute. That was the only part of his life he got to keep for himself. In the early 2010s, Kelly was diagnosed with cancer. The specific type was never confirmed publicly. Some sources suggested kidney cancer, others prostate. Kelly kept the diagnosis entirely private, sharing the information only with Marcia and a small circle of close friends. There was no public announcement, no farewell tour, no statement prepared for media release. On June 29, 2013, Jim Kelly died at his home in San Diego at the age of 67. Marcia Bentley released a short statement. Jim passed peacefully. He lived the way he wanted to, strong, quiet, and free. Even in death, the noise that Kelly had spent decades refusing to create was invented for him. Some martial arts websites spread a false story, claiming he had died choking during an exercise session. Others reported a sudden stroke. Marcia had to step forward specifically to correct the record and confirm the truth. Cancer, a quiet struggle, a peaceful passing surrounded by family. That false rumor said everything about how the world had always related to Jim Kelly. He was so still, so contained, so deliberately private, that when he was gone, people felt compelled to manufacture a dramatic story just to make sense of the silence. The tributes arrived after his death in the form of newspaper pieces and online remembrances. The Hollywood Reporter, the Los Angeles Times, and The Guardian all published acknowledgments. Roger Ebert, one of the most respected film critics in American history, described Kelly as a declaration of life, a symbol of a generation of black men who refused to be boxed in. Those tributes were genuine and well-earned. But the legacy of Jim Kelly is not really about the films. It is about the choices. Kelly was the first black martial arts film star in American cinema history. That fact is documented and undisputed. But the more important legacy is what he did with the limitations that history placed in front of him. He did not compromise the roles he took. He did not show gratitude for an industry that was using him. He did not fall apart when the phone stopped ringing. He walked to a tennis court and became a champion there, too. The generation of black actors who came after him, who could play lead roles without the burden of representing an entire community, who could be complex and flawed and human on screen without those qualities being interpreted as threatening, built on the ground that Kelly and others like him broke open. He did not get to enjoy the world he helped create, but the creation happened because people like him refused to accept what the industry said was possible. Jim Kelly needed no applause to know who he was. The silence he chose was not defeat. It was the most complete form of victory available to him at the time. And that stillness, that uncompromising refusal to be diminished, is exactly what made him immortal. Jim Kelly was not forgotten because the world stopped caring. The world was not given the chance to care properly. A man that talented, that disciplined, and that unwilling to be owned by a system that did not deserve him, deserved far more than the story he got. Now, the full story has been told. Hit that like button if this opened something new for you, and subscribe so more stories like this land right in front of you.